Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear participants. Welcome to this session of Quran for Ramadan. Today we'll be studying a passage from Surah Mawrid, to be exact, from verses 23 to 35. These verses actually, as you will see, they point out to certain traits of the believers which the Almighty wants them to proclaim and to profess. And as we tag along, you'll find that these traits which are mentioned, they begin with the mention of prayer and they end with the mention on the prayer, which mean that this prayer is like a wall which encircles all these directives. In other words, it is like a protection that is given to all these directives which are found within this passage, so as to say that if you protect your prayers, if you are diligent and vigilant in the prayer, then it will become easier for you to follow what is said later. And if this prayer is compromised, or we are not able to do it the way it should be done, then a lot of other directives of religion and morality will also be compromised. So let us start off. It says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Allazina hum ala salatihim da'imun, والذين في أموالهم حق معلوم للسائل والمحروم والذين يصدقون بيوم الدين والذين هم من عذاب ربهم مشفقون إن عذاب ربهم غير مأمون والذين هم لفروجهم حافظون إلا على أزواجهم أو ما ملكت أيمانهم فإنهم غير ملومين فمن ابتغى وراء ذلك فأولئك هم العادون والذين هم لأماناتهم وعهدهم راعون والذين هم بشهاداتهم قائمون والذين هم على صلاتهم يحافظون أولئك في جنات مكرمون. In the name of God, the most gracious, the ever merciful. But not those who pray, who are always vigilant in their prayer, who have a fixed portion in their wealth for those who ask and for the deprived, who truly believe in the day of reckoning and keep dreading the punishment of their Lord, because the punishment of their Lord is not something to be careless of, who preserve their chastity except with their wives and slave girls, for in their matter they are not blameworthy. But those who seek to go beyond this, then it is they who are transgressors, who keep their trusts and promises, both with regard to God and with regard to their fellow human beings, who stand firm in their testimonies and who guard their prayers. It is they who will be in gardens of paradise with great honor. So, as I had just pointed out, these directives, they start with the passage. The passage starts with the directive of being more consistent and persistent in the prayer. So they are always vigilant in the prayer, meaning that they are always consistent. They don't easily, they don't leave the prayer. And in fact, if they are able, if they are find some time, or they are not able to offer the prayer on time, then we also have this provision from the Almighty that at times when we are traveling, we can combine two prayers. We can also shorten them. So such is the nature of this prayer, that because it connects us to the Almighty, it is something which really establishes a strong connection. So the Almighty wants that connection to remain as far as possible. And even in emergent circumstances, even in contingent circumstances where a person might be pushed to time, lesser forms of the protocol of the prayer are prescribed. So if we are not able to pray at our homes, if the time of the prayer comes in on a conveyance like a transport, a car, a motorbike, and an aeroplane, and even if we are walking. So the Quran has given us this leverage that if the prayer time comes during our travels, whether on foot or on a transport, you can offer the prayer in this posture as well. Of course, it will be a lesser form of the prayer, but then leaving the prayer or not offering it is not an option at all. So that is why the Almighty wants us to adhere to it in all circumstances. And why is that? The reason is that the prayer cements our relationship with the Almighty. All of us, we need that connection with the Almighty to be a righteous individual, to be a person who, whenever is faced with a choice between good and evil, he automatically or she automatically inclines herself or himself towards what is goodness. So the stronger that God connection, the more will be a person's urge to adopt what good is. And the lesser that connection, the weaker that connection, the more will a person succumb to vices and and things that we are not proud of. So that is why we need to be in connection with God, in communion with God, talking to Him, glorifying Him, thanking Him for His favors, at the same time making supplications to Him. And one of the most important forms of this connection is the prayer, and that is why this verse says, "Allazina hum ala salatihim da'imun," that who are always consistent and vigilant in the prayer. The next thing which is mentioned is "Wallazina fi amwalihim hakkum ma'lum." So who have a fixed portion in their wealth for those who ask and for the deprived. And again, something that we have discussed a lot of times, that people who are good believers, who are good Muslims, they always have a share for the underprivileged in their wealth. And this fixed share, which is of course what we call as zakat, is something that is not just something that has been prescribed by Prophet Muhammad or in the times of the Prophet Muhammad. It is an age-old directive, like the prayer, the Hajj, and other rituals. It is something that was paid by earlier prophets as well. And that is why it is a pre-existing sunnah. And precisely that is why its rates are also not mentioned in the Quran, because they were understood and established in the Arabian society. So in order to connect ourselves to people who are around us, to people who might not be in a position to look after themselves, as the Quranic verse itself says, "Lis-sa'il wal mahroom," a person who asks and a person who is deprived. So of course, when these two words occur together, they refer to the fact that there are some people who would come to you and ask for their needs, and there are others who would not be able to do so because of their own self-esteem and self-respect. So this self-esteem and this self-respect at times makes a person more concentrated and more self-sufficient. So people who have their share in their wealth, they have to connect to such people and take pains to find them. And more often than not, they'll find such people right under their nose, maybe amongst their relatives, maybe amongst their neighbors, people who are living right across them or right in front of them, right among them. And you just need an eye and a keen observation to find out such people. At one instance, the Quran has said, "Yahsabuhumul jahil aghniya min at-ta'affuf," that at times these people are, they look outwardly to be such well set that you feel that, well, there is nothing wrong with them. They cannot be in any spot of bother. So if you are not observant enough, you'll think that they are well off. But if you are more observant, you'll find that they need some help, and it is only because of their self-esteem and self-respect that they don't ask from their tongues. وَالَّذِينَ يُصَدِّقُونَ بِيَوْمِ الدِّينِ, who truly believe in the day of reckoning. And then something which follows up is وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ مِنْ عَذَابِ رَبِّهِمْ مُشْفِقُونَ, and keep dreading the punishment of their Lord. So they are the ones who believe in the hereafter. They know that this world in which they are living is a temporary world. It's a world that is going to pass away. It's a transient world. It's a place that all of us are going to stay for some time. And then we have to move away from this place and face the Almighty, face the reckoning, face our own accounts and our deeds, the register of our deeds. Because we know that this world is a place that has, it's been created for a particular purpose, and that is to try and test mankind. The Almighty is choosing His people, His special people who He would like to admit to paradise, and maybe He has some objective for them once people go there. But at the moment, He wants us to concentrate to reach there. That objective is not known as yet. But once we are able to reach there, we may have something ahead of us. However, for that, we need to qualify. And that qualification and that attention and focus is something that we all require in this world. And we always think that whenever we are faced with a proposition in which this world and the next world are to be given importance, then we have to give the next world the importance. The requisites of the next world, they have to be something that should be our first priority. And our own undertakings, our wealth, our health, everything has this ring about it, that whatever we do, whatever we spend, however much effort we might make, they all should be in a direction that, yes, we should contribute the best we can in this world, but whenever there is a clash in this world's requisites and that of the next world, then we need to be giving preference to the requisites of the next world. Because the Almighty says that if you don't do that, then on the day of judgment, you'll face punishment. And these are the people who dread this punishment. They know that if they are not going to fulfill their promise with God, their covenant with God, then they are going to be really, really taken to task. Inna azaba rabbihim ghayru ma'mun. So this is a further warning that the punishment of their Lord is something that they cannot be careless of. This is something that they cannot be secure from. Once it starts off, we know that people who would land in hell, especially there is a category of people who land in hell, they'll be there for eternity because they associated partners, deliberately associated partners with God. And about such people, we know that there is eternal damnation. And there are some other sins as well. So people do have, they need to understand that as far as life is concerned, it is a place in which we can earn a lot for the hereafter, and we can lose a lot and end up as losers in the hereafter. والذين هم لفروجهم حافظون إلا على أزواجهم أو ما ملكت أيمانهم فإنهم غير ملومين فمن ابتغى وراء ذلك فأولئك هم العادون, who preserve their chastity, except with their wives and slave girls, for in their matter they are not blameworthy. But those who seek to go beyond this, then it is they who are transgressors. So this again is a directive that has been repeated in the Quran a lot of times, and it refers to the fact that the family life has to be protected. And the biggest threat to a family life is out of wedlock intimacy with other women. So the Almighty has said that they confine their sexual desires only to their wives. And of course, in those circumstances, since slavery was existent and rampant, and it was later on put an end to after a gradual process, so this, of course, was given sanction. But as soon as that happened, then, of course, the Quranic directive is that beyond one's wives, no one can have any intimacy. No one can even look beyond this this marriage bond, because it is going to be something which destroys that family life. It's going to rupture it. It's going to totally tear it apart, and any outside wedlock relations will hasten the breakage of this institution. And that is why the Quran says that فَمَنِ ابْتَغَى وَرَاءَ ذَلِكَ فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْعَادُونَ. Those who seek to go beyond this, those who seek to break this marriage bond by indulging in intimacy with other women, then they are transgressors, and such people will be really punished by the Almighty in the hereafter. وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ لِأَمَانَاتِهِمْ وَأَحْدِهِمْ رَاعُونَ. So, who keep their trusts and promises, both with regard to God and with regard to their fellow human beings. وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ لِأَمَانَاتِهِمْ وَأَحْدِهِمْ رَاعُونَ. So once again, we find ourselves being advised very dearly that we must not go back on our word. We must always honor our promises. We must honor the covenants and the agreements that we may enter. And of course, these agreements, these covenants, they are both with God and with our fellow human beings. At times they are written, and at times, in fact, most of the time, they are unwritten. So to be obedient to God is something which is not written. I mean, it's not like a written agreement that we have made, but of course, it's an understood agreement. Similarly, to be kind, sympathetic, and patient with human beings, with individuals, and to take care of them, especially those who are around us and are in need. This again is an unwritten agreement that we have with our society. So it's not just the promises that we give verbally and intentionally that are included here, but included here are also other promises which are understood as rights and obligations in the society that we live in. And I've also underscored this earlier on, and I'd like to repeat this, that one of the most important things in life is to learn to say no, especially when you are not able to make a commitment. It's far better to refuse to make that commitment, to learn to say no, than to make that commitment and then flounder it. So we must not in any way flounder this commitment or these commitments that we make. And yes, there are situations which become an emergency and we are not able to fulfill our commitments. But in that case, we must immediately apologize or pre-inform the person or make amends. It goes without saying. But most importantly, if there is something that we know at the very start that we would not be able to fulfill, then we should never venture forth to make that commitment. وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ بِشَهَادَاتِهِمْ قَائِمُونَ وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ عَلَى صَلَاتِهِمْ يُحَافِظُونَ, who stand firm in their testimonies and who guard their prayers. So what is mentioned now is that whenever they bear testimony, whenever they give witness to something, they stand firm to it. They do not falter. They do not go back, because this is like an oath that you are giving. This is like a testification. That's like a testimony that you are giving. You don't go back on that, but you honor everything that you have said, because now you are not just alone. You have borne witness to some document, some statement, something which has other people involved in it. And the very last directive with which this passage ends, before it says "Ulaika fi jannati mukramun," is "Wallazina hum ala salatihim yuhafizun." It is there who guard their prayers. Of course, guarding the prayer is something that we all have to understand. It means that you are able to offer the prayer in a way that you offer every part of it, every posture, in a way that has stability, smoothness, comfort, and full attention and focus in it. You are offering your prayer on a time that is allotted for it. At the same time, you are also vigilant that whatever you say in the prayer is not something that goes above you. It is something that you clearly understand. And then finally, the Quran says, "Ulaika fi jannati mukramun," that these are the people who will be in gardens of paradise with great honor. So such is the glad tiding which is mentioned, that if we are able to follow all these traits, we abide by these traits, and especially the prayer, which is like a wall which encircles all these directives, then Quran says that we will be admitted in high honor and bestowed with a lot of status in the hereafter. And with this, we come to an end to a discussion on this passage, and now we can move to the Q&A session.
Thank you, Dr. Shehzad, for a beautiful explanation of the verses. We do not have any questions right now, but I have these questions that were saved earlier. So my first question is, will the people go to heaven be reunited with their loved ones who go to hell? Is it possible to take the loved ones out of hell since all the requests in heaven are granted? And the hadith that's quoted, the part of the hadith is, "Oh Allah, save our brothers for who they used to pray with us, fast with us, and also do good deeds with us." And Allah will say, "Go and take out of hell anyone in those in whose heart you find faith equal to weight of one gold dinar."
So, well, actually, this genre of narrative, they do exist in abundance, but we have to understand it. And all such narratives have to be understood in the light of the Quran. And if such a happening is to take place as per the Quran, then it will only be once they have gone through the punishment that was mandatory for them in the hereafter, in hell. So if they have passed that punishment, if they have finished their period or their term of punishment, it is on such an occasion, of course, that if you have prayed for your dear departed or someone that you loved in this world, and now you're also in the next world, you have landed in paradise. So on an occasion in which they have finished their term of punishment, if you say these words of request to the Almighty, then surely they would be granted, because the Almighty would have already decided that this is now, I mean, such a person has done enough vis-a-vis the punishment that he or she would have to have faced. And now it's the turn for that person to come out of paradise, to come out of hell, because of the fact that the punishment tenure has finished, and now he or she can enter paradise.
Thank you. Rabia Jamil, you may ask your question.
Assalamu alaikum. I want to ask a question about Bani Israel, which you have also discussed in your lesson, and that ayah is "Wala taqtulu awladakum khashyata imlaq nahnu narzuquhum wa iyyakum," means do not kill your children for the fear of poverty. We give you and also to them. So my question is about if a couple does planning in this regard, that how many children they'd have in future, and taking into account their economic condition and financial condition. So does this come under the nahnu narzuquhum wa iyyakum? Because I've read anywhere that one of the greatest scholars explained it, that this also comes under you are interfering in the God matters, and you deciding that this matter of risk. So it is not permissible for you to decide that how many children you will have. So what's your opinion in this regard?
This is absolutely not they're not the same. When you kill your children, as has been said here, La taqtulu awladakum khashyata imlaq, it actually means that you kill children who are born to you, and you are killing them for fear of poverty. Children who are not even born, I mean, they cannot be regarded to be addressees of this verse. They relate to a planning that a person or a couple might do regarding a future child that is to be born to them, and this is something which is imperative to them. I mean, it's not just a question of an optional thing. To plan a child such that you think that whether you have not only the means and resources but also the time and your energy and the effort and the type of profession that you are in, because mostly today both for the father and the mother or the husband and the wife are working. So in order to for a new life to come to them, they have to see all these factors, whether the health of the mother is okay or not, whether she's in a position to give sufficient time or not, whether overall the finances are such that if they concentrate, will they have enough, not just for nourishing them, but you see, it's a larger question, it's a bigger question, and that includes their education, their upbringing, their health. All these things they are added to that expense. So it is imperative that we look on all such instances. In fact, the way the Quran has described so many things, it says that, well, unless you do this planning, you cannot expect God to help you. So all this thing which relates to planning, which relates to our own personal life, it has to be thought of earlier, not just in the case of bringing a new life in this world, but in all such situations. Whatever our situation, we have to look towards the circumstances we are in, towards our parents, towards our society. So it's not just a question of thinking that it is an evil or an anathema. I go as far as to say it's not even optional, it's mandatory that we look at all these factors and then decide whether we would like a child or not. And yes, if in spite all our planning, the decision of God overrules that, of course we know by at times where you use contraceptive techniques, but still uh, the uh, the conception does takes place. In that case, of course, God's decision should be taken as final. However, in that too, there are circumstances in which, because we have been given this option to abort a child within 120 days of conception, because at that until that happens, in 120 days, he's just an organic mass which has a heartbeat. The soul has not yet been blown into it, and therefore, if for some reason, even at that instance, it is aborted, that is also something which is allowed.
Thank you, Dr. Shehzad. Bisma Tirmizi, you can ask your question.
So, Dr. Shehzad, my question is, how do we determine what israf is? There are lots of people who have a lot of wealth and they're very wealthy and they also um, help humanity, they help their fellow Muslims, they give charity, zakat, everything, but they even spend excessive amounts on themselves. So, as humans, we're not supposed to judge other people, but how do we classify israf and when do we think of it as israf, even if we can't voice it?
So you see, as far as israf is concerned, our first and primary attention should be on our own selves. Whether any other person is doing israf or not is not our business, because he or she is answerable to God in the first place. And yes, if you have close relations with that person and you'd like to advise that person regarding this, then of course that also has that also has a time and an opportunity. But much more important is that we ourselves first concentrate on what israf is for us. And the best judge for that is our own conscience. We know when we are overspending. We very well know when we are going much beyond our needs. And it's not just the aesthetic taste that we are satisfying, but we are just adding and adding and adding and amassing things in our home. Whereas we know that, we could have done easily without many of them. And when we do israf also, many a times another spiritual ailment sets in, and that is show off and display. Because you see, these two are, they necessitate one another at times. If you are spending a lot, you feel like showing off, and when you are showing off, it's because of the fact that you have spent a lot. So that is also to be guarded. But as I said, the golden rule is follow your gut feeling, follow your conscience.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Shehzad. Mansoor Ahmed, you may ask your question.
सर एक स्टोरी मिलती है हमें राबिया बसरी से उनसे मुतालिक की जाती है कि वो अपने एक हाथ में पानी लिए घूमती थी और
एक मिनट इससे पहले कि आप स्टोरी को बयान करें, आपने इसकी ऑथेंटिसिटी चेक कर ली है? क्योंकि राबिया बसरी के बारे में जितनी भी स्टोरीज हैं वो 99% फॉल्स हैं।
جی جی چلیں وہ فالس ہے، لیکن اس میں سوال میں اس کے ذیل میں لے کے آ رہا تھا کہ
جی
اللہ کے ساتھ ہمارا جو تعلق ہوتا ہے وہ لالچ کی بنیاد پہ ہونا چاہیے، یا اللہ کا حق ہے ہمیں کہ ہم اس کی عبادت کریں یا اس کے
دیکھیں،
احکامات کو فالو کریں. تو خوف و طمع کا الفاظ بھی آئے ہیں قرآن میں، لیکن بنیادی طور پہ ہمارا تعلق کس بنیاد کے اوپر ہونا چاہیے؟
یہی جو آپ نے بتایا کہ خوفم و طمع، قرآن کے الفاظ ہیں یدعون ربہم خوفم و طمع، وہ اپنے رب کو پکارتے ہیں امید میں بھی اور بیم میں بھی. امید آپ کو یہ ہوتی ہے کہ اللہ تعالیٰ اگر کوئی کوتاہی ہو گئی ہے تو معاف کریں گے. خوف آپ کو یہ ہوتا ہے کہ اگر جانتے بوجھتے کی ہے تو نہیں ہوگا. تو یہ اللہ تعالیٰ کے ساتھ تعلق ایسا ہی ہے جیسے آپ کا اپنے والدین کے ساتھ ہوتا ہے، صرف اس کی جو میگنیٹیوڈ بہت زیادہ ہو جاتا ہے. والدین کو بھی کی بھی محبت کا نوعیت اسی طرح کی ہوتی ہے. ان کی جو ناراضی ہوتی ہے وہ اس لیے نہیں ہوتی ہے اگر آپ کوئی غلط کام کر رہے ہیں تو ان کا نقصان ہو رہا ہوتا ہے. ان کی ناراضی اس لیے ہوتی ہے کہ آپ اپنا نقصان کر رہے ہوتے ہیں. تو اللہ تعالیٰ کا بھی معاملہ یہی ہے کہ وہ اپنے بندوں سے ناراض اس لیے نہیں ہوتا کہ جو بندے کر رہے ہیں اگر وہ کریں گے تو اس سے خدا کا نقصان ہوگا، بلکہ بندوں کا اپنا نقصان ہوگا. تو یہ خدا کی حد درجہ شفقت ہے کہ وہ ان چیزوں میں ناراض ہو رہا ہے جو ہمارے اپنی لیے ٹھیک نہیں ہے، ہمیں اپنا نقصان پہنچائیں گی. اور امید ظاہر ہے اسی چیز میں ہوتی ہے کہ اللہ تعالیٰ اگر کوئی کمی کوتاہی ہو گئی ہے، جانتے بوجھتے نہیں ہوئی ہے، تو اللہ تعالیٰ اس کو معاف کریں گے. تو یہی وہ تعلق کی اساس ہے جس کو قرآن نے باقاعدہ نص میں بیان کر دیا ہے. یدعون ربہم خوفا و طمعا ومما رزقناہم ینفقون. غالباً سورہ سجدہ میں یہ آیت ہے کہ وہ اپنے رب کو پکارتے ہیں امید میں بھی اور بیم میں بھی، اور اس کی راہ میں خرچتے ہیں.
Thank you, Dr. Shehzad. Farhan, you may ask your question now.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
وعلیکم السلام.
Sir, my question is about the Quran tells us that we should always keep our promises, do not tell lies, and do not backbite. But like every single human, I probably have committed these sins in the past and probably still commit them. How can I repent for them, as I probably am taking the rights of my fellow brothers and sisters?
Well, the best way is that if you can make amends for that through an apology or through a compensation regarding a person that you know that is something that should happen. But if you're not in touch with that person, or somehow you will never be in touch with that person because you've just lost track of him, then sincerely repent before the Almighty, and on the day of judgment, when you face him, ask for forgiveness from him and offer any compensation that he might need from you.
Thank you, Dr. Shehzad. Farah, you may ask your question if you want to.
السلام علیکم. سو میری کوشچن یہ تھا کہ اسلام میں کوئی کلیئر ڈائریکٹیو ہے اباؤٹ ریگارڈنگ انٹیمیسی وتھ سلیو گرلس، کہ مطلب ہسٹری کے اندر کوئی ایسا ہے قرآن میں یا حدیث سے ہم مطلب کچھ ایسا ہے کچھ جو کہ
جی دیکھیے، میں تو تفصیل سے اس پہ ہم بہت دفعہ گفتگو کر چکے ہیں. آپ وہ لنک میرے خیال ہے آپ کو میسر کر دیں گے ہماری جو کوآرڈینیٹر ہیں عروبہ. لیکن مختصراً یہ ہے کہ اس زمانے میں سلیوری واز پارٹ آف دا سوسائٹی. سیکشول انٹیمیسی بٹوین سلیو ویمن اینڈ دیئر ماسٹرز واز این ایکسیپٹیبل نارم. اس کو ختم کیا گیا ہے اور ایک خاص موقع تک اس کو گوارا کیا گیا، کیونکہ وہ اتنی ڈیپلی روٹڈ تھی سوسائٹی کے اندر کہ اگر فورن سلیوز کو آزاد کرتے تو چونکہ ان کی تربیت نہیں ہوئی تھی تو وہ معاشرے کے اندر معاشی بوجھ کا بھی باعث بنتی، اور چونکہ خواتین جو تھیں اس زمانے میں جو سلیو گرلز تھی وہ پروسٹیٹیوشن پر زیادہ تر انحصار رکھتی تھیں، تو وہ پھر چکلے کھول لیتی سوسائٹی میں جا کے. تو اس وجہ سے ایک بہت تدریج کے ساتھ یہ پالیسی اختیار کی گئی کہ سلیو خواتین کی تربیت بھی کی گئی، اور پھر اس کے بعد یہ کہا گیا کہ جو بھی آزاد ہونا چاہتا ہے اس کو آزاد کر دیا جائے، اور جو خود اپنی مرضی سے رہنا چاہتا ہے، اس لیے کہ خاندان کئی جنریشن سے رہتے آ رہے تھے، ان کو یہ کہا گیا کہ اگر آپ رہنا چاہتے تو آپ رہیں، لیکن جو آزاد ہونا چاہتا ہے وہ آزاد ہو. اور ساتھ ہی نئی سلیوز بننے کا جو طریقہ تھا وہ جنگوں میں تھا، کہ جنگوں میں لوگوں کو پکڑ کے غلام بنایا جاتا تھا. تو وہ تو ڈے ون سے ختم کر دیا گیا. جو پہلی جنگ ہوئی ہے کفار کے ساتھ، جنگ بدر، اسی کے موقع پہ کہہ دیا گیا کہ اب آپ نئے سلیوز نہیں بنا سکتے. تو پرانے جو سلیوز تھے جو رہ گئے ہوئے تھے انہیں کے ساتھ ہی معاملہ کیا گیا. اور نبی صلی اللہ علیہ وسلم کی اپنی ایک سلیو خاتون تھیں ماریہ، جو ان کو مکوکس جو تھے مصر کے صدر انہوں نے دی تھی. آپ نے ان کے بطن سے ابراہیم بھی پیدا ہوئے ان کے بیٹے، اور ہمیں یہ معلوم ہے کہ انہوں نے جب تک کہ یہ سلیوری موجود تھی انہوں نے ماریہ قبطیہ کو بھی اپنے پاس ہی رکھا، آزاد نہیں کیا، تاکہ بتایا جائے صحابہ کو اور ان لوگوں کو جن کے پاس سلیو ویمن تھی کہ آئیڈیلی آپ کو کیسے رکھنا چاہیے ایک لانڈی کو. اور تقریباً ان کا وہی درجہ تھا، یعنی ظاہر ہے وہ ایگزیکٹ اسٹیٹس میں تو نہیں تھی، لیکن ان کا اکرام اور ان کی رسپیکٹ وہی تھی جو ایک بیوی کے برابر تھی. تو یہ بتانے کے لیے کہ جب تک آپ کے پاس رہیں تو ان کو آپ نے ایسے رکھنا ہے. لیکن اس کے بعد اس کو ختم کر دیا گیا. آج اس کا کوئی سرے سے ہی کی بنیاد پہ یہ کام نہیں کر سکتا. ہاں یہ اور بات ہے کہ ہمارے جو بہت سارے کنونشنل مذہبی نقطہ نظر کے حاملین ہیں وہ آج بھی سلیوری کو مانتے ہیں, وہی سمجھتے ہیں کہ اگر جنگ ہوگی تو آپ اس میں جنگی خواتین کو پکڑ کے لونڈیاں بنا سکتے ہیں اور ان سے انٹیمیسی پیدا کر سکتے ہیں, یہ جو بالکل درست نہیں ہے. اسلام نے اس کو انہیریٹ کیا تھا اپنے زمانے میں اور ایک تدریج کے ساتھ سے خاتمہ کر دیا. یہ میں نے آپ کو مختصر جواب دیا, ورنہ اس کی تفصیل آپ اس مختلف لنکس پہ دیکھ سکیں.
اٹس امپورٹنٹ
Thank you,
بیکاز
Dr.
وہی ہے کہ
Shehzad.
اگر کلیئر ڈائریکٹیو سامنے نہ ہو کچھ اگر تو وہ پھر یہ کہ بہت سارے لوگ اس کو وہ مطلب
آج بھی سمجھتے ہیں. جی جی.
جزاک اللہ فار اگر کوئی لنک جو بھی ہے رات میں مل جائے.
Thank you. There's a question in the chat. Why are there two goats for boys and one goat for girl for Akika?
So this is not prescribed by Islam at all. It was the Arab tradition which the Prophet also at times followed, and so did the Sahaba, but not as a Sharia, but just as a tradition. So today you can follow any of the traditions, I mean your own society, and this goat sacrifice or animal sacrifice, if some newborn, you have been blessed with a newborn, is an optional matter in itself, and the number of goats that you need to sacrifice is also entirely dependent on you. It's not that for males you have to sacrifice 2 goats, and for a boy or for a girl you do it for 1. That, as I said, that was an Arab cultural tradition, and today it's entirely up to the choice of the family.
Thank you. Saira, you may ask your question now. Okay. Meanwhile, there was this very popular thing that is said that it is a hadith, but I don't really believe it, but it is that a woman will take 4 men into hell with her. So
We need to check out this hadith. I don't think it is very authentically reported. Why would this happen? Yes, one reason could be that men have become so, not women, but men have become so evil in their character that a single woman would make them go through these evil deeds. So it's not that the woman has to be looked down upon. I think it's the men who have to pay attention to this.
thank you. I think Saira is here. Saira, you may ask your question now.
جی کین یو ہیئر می؟ وہ غلطی سے میوٹ ہو جاتا ہے. آئی ڈونٹ نو، آئی ایم ویری بیڈ ود دیز تھنگس. جی میرا کوشچن تھا کہ جتنا میں پڑھ رہی ہوں اس رمضان یا جتنے بھی میں اس دفعہ چیزیں سن رہی ہوں، مجھے پتہ نہیں اللہ میاں سے بہت خوف پیدا ہو رہا ہے. آئی ایم جسٹ concentrating on punishment, hellfire, and I am not being able to concentrate on his mercy. So کوئی ایسی آیات ہیں مطلب سورہ، مطلب مجھے جیسے اٹس ڈپریسنگ می فردر اینڈ فردر. سو آئی ڈونٹ نو کیا میری یہ کوئی اپنی پرسنل اسٹیج ہے کہ از اٹ ایز ون از گیٹنگ اولڈر ہمیں خدا کا خوف زیادہ ہمارے سامنے آ رہا ہے، بٹ کیوں اس دفعہ کانسنٹریشن مجھے زیادہ ہیل فائر، پنشمنٹ، اٹرنل ہیل. بیکاز دیکھیں جو بھی آپ سے کبھی کوئی گناہ ہوتا ہے انسان آئی تھنک انٹینشن کے ساتھ تو نہیں کرتا.
آف کورس نہیں، آئی تھنک شاید ایسا ہو رہا ہو کہ اتفاق سے آپ قرآن جس طرح سے پڑھ رہی ہوں اس میں وہ آیتیں زیادہ آ رہی ہوں. ادروائز اگر آپ قرآن کو پڑھیں تو یو ول فائنڈ آؤٹ wherever punishment is mentioned, almost at every instance اس کا جو پیرل ہے کہ people who will be doing good, وہ mercy is mentioned almost everywhere. لیکن ایسا ضرور ہوتا ہے کہ چونکہ قرآن مجید میں پرانی قوموں کا ذکر ہے جنہوں نے اللہ کی نافرمانی کی اور بہت جگہوں پہ ذکر آتا ہے، تو ان کے لیے عذاب کا ذکر آتا ہے. تو اگر آپ کانٹیکسٹ صحیح جان لیں کہ جو عذاب کا پہلو ہے، جو اللہ تعالیٰ کی ناراضی کا جو پہلو ہے، وہ ان لوگوں کے لیے ہے جو جانتے بوجھتے غلطی کرتے ہیں، جن سے غلطی ہو جائے یا یہ ان کے لیے نہیں ہے.
ٹھیک ہے، نہیں وہ بھی سمجھ آ گیا، بٹ کوئی خاص ہے جیسے حضرت ایوب کی کبھی کوئی کہتا ہے دعا پڑھو، کوئی خاص آپ کوئی خاص ہدایت دے سکتے ہیں کسی کے لیے جو بہت ڈرا ہوا ہو؟ میں ڈری ہوئی ہوں، میں اللہ سے بہت ڈری ہوئی ہوں، تو میں کیا کروں؟ تہجد پڑھوں، روؤں، کیا کروں؟ میں اللہ میاں سے بہت ڈری ہوئی.
آپ اللہ سے اگر ڈری ہوئی ہیں تو سب سے اچھا طریقہ یہ ہے کہ قرآن مجید میں بھی اور خود اپنے غور و فکر میں اس چیز پہ کانسنٹریٹ کریں کہ جو اللہ تعالیٰ نے آپ کو بلیسنگ سے نوازا ہے. اگر آپ
جی
کے پاس دیکھنے کی آنکھیں ہیں, سننے کے کان ہیں, آپ کو 2 وقت
جی
کی روٹی میسر ہے, آپ کے سر
جی
پہ چھت ہے, آپ کے پاس ایک سواری ہے, آپ کے پاس ہیلتھ کے لیے اور ایجوکیشن کی فیسلٹیز ہیں, تو آپ
جی
40% لوگ جو دنیا کی پاورٹی لائن سے نیچے رہتے ہیں ان سے
جی
بہت بہتر. تو
جی
جسے کہتے ہیں نا کہ ہیو ٹو کیپ کاؤنٹنگ یور بلیسنگس, ہمیشہ یہ دیکھیے کہ آپ کے پاس کیا ہے. تو جیسے ہی آپ غور
جی
کرنا شروع کریں گے, اور صرف ایک چھوٹی سی چیز آنکھ کو دیکھ لیجئے, میں اس
جی
لیے ہمیشہ اس کو پوائنٹ آؤٹ کرتا ہوں کہ آنکھیں اتنی بڑی نعمت ہیں کہ وی ٹیک دیم فار گرانٹیڈ. تو
جی
اس وجہ سے اسٹارٹ آف ود واٹ یو ہیو, اینڈ اس کے نتیجے میں یو ول آلویز فیل دیٹ that attitude of gratitude, that feeling of gratitude has overcome you.
جی میرے منہ سے استغفر اللہ کے علاوہ تو کچھ نکلتا ہی نہیں ہے, شکر الحمدللہ, بٹ پھر بھی مجھے
نہیں,
خوف ہے.
آپ استغفر اللہ کے بجائے نا الحمدللہ نکالیں, اور الحمدللہ
اچھا
اس پہ نکالیں کہ جو کچھ آپ کے
جی
پاس ہے, ایک جو بلیسنگ آپ کے پاس ہے, جو آپ کے وارڈروب میں
جی
کپڑے ہیں, جو آپ کے پاس
جی
یوٹینسلز ہیں, جو آپ کے
جی,
پاس, مطلب ہمارے پاس کتنا کچھ ہے, ہر ایک کو نگاہ
تو
میں لے کے آئیں الحمدللہ کہیں, تو آپ کو
اس سے
کچھ محسوس ہوگا.
میرا خوف دور ہوگا.
انشاءاللہ ہو جائے گا, آپ ٹرائی کریں.
اوکے
Thank you,
اوکے
Dr.
تھینک
Shehzad. Thank you, Saira. We
یو.
will
جی
be concluding the session over here, and we will start off by the questions that are remaining today. We'll start off by tomorrow with those questions first.
انشاءاللہ.
Thank you, Dr. Shehzad, again. Thank you all for participating. See you all tomorrow. Have a great rest of the day. Allah Hafiz.
اللہ حافظ.